I just want to say thank you for your time and everyone that's come along. And what I'm going to do today is talk you through just some examples that we do with creative effectiveness. But I hate those presentations that are really, really salesy, where people start by describing their company and what their company does and then talks you through what they do afterwards. So I thought I would mix it up, and in fact, I'm going to start with examples straight away. So I'm just going to dive into some of the work we do with our clients, and you guys are going to try and figure out through that content what it is we actually do. And then if you'll humor me for a few slides at the end, I'll run through what we do as well using videos, just so that no one leaves the room having not understood what it is. So does that seem okay with everyone? All right, good. So I thought I'd start with this slide here, because I didn't want to obviously give away what it is that we do. So I thought I'd start with something, and I was hoping it would catch people's attention as well, having a question mark. Did you know, when I was researching this, the question mark actually comes from the Latin quativo, which apparently is where the Q and the O were put together, and somehow over millions of years have evolved into this kind of weird Q and then this weird O. I didn't know that, but I thought I'd share it with you anyway. Okay, so I'm going really, really left field now. You're probably thinking, what is this guy up to? Show of hands if you hazard a guess and know what cheese that is. Parmesan, okay. I was hoping you wouldn't get it straight away. But yes, Parmesan cheese. Okay. I thought about, okay, what is great creative? Like, creative is a very hard thing to describe. It's very abstract. And I thought it's kind of a bit like cheese. Put your hands up here if you like Parmesan cheese. I think it's quite a popular cheese. Some people love Parmesan cheese. I think it's right up there with like burrata, which everyone seems to love as well, which is an obscure kind of cheese. But imagine someone had never tried cheese before, and you had to describe to them what it is. Imagine trying to describe Parmesan cheese to somebody and convincing them that it's this amazing food thing that you can eat. I think it would be kind of tricky, because I think if you described it, it wouldn't sound all that tempting. If you described how it's made and how you eat it and what it smells like, it wouldn't be that interesting. And I think the same can be said for great creative. If I ask you what great creative is on digital, so if we focus on digital here, it's a very hard thing to describe. So I can show you some great creatives now, and we can have a look at creatives which we'll probably all agree, they look kind of nice. You know, if I saw these ads, I would think, yeah, this is a nice ad for Airbnb. It's a nice experience when it unveils. It feels kind of premium. I get a feeling that that's kind of a premium brand. Hard to describe what it is. And if I show you another one for Wish, for Netflix first. Again, a nice creative, a mix of kind of display, some rich media, a bit of video in there. Nice creative, very different to the last one. Kind of hard to describe. And for us at Celtra, we think that yes, creative can be beautiful, but it's not just a luxury. When we run campaigns, we want creative to actually do something. And we actually think that creative is the biggest part of that action. So if you think of your campaigns that you run, you've got media and you've got creative. And we think of media as kind of the vehicle to get that message out there, right? So the media is just buying that opportunity to present your message to somebody, but it's that message that's going to get somebody to actually do something and feel something towards your brand. Consumers aren't going to remember how good your media targeting was, how fantastic your third-party tracking was, how good your DSP optimizing algorithms are. They're only going to remember the message you put in front of them. And so we don't just want creative to be a luxury, we want it to be a lever in performance for people. So today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how we run creative experimentation and creative effectiveness projects with marketers. So before I go into some of the examples that we've done, I need to talk about how we do it. So I just need to talk about the framework of how these campaigns are run. So when you're setting up running a campaign, it's important that you understand the true performance of creative in a controlled way. And so at the moment, when we often run creatives, we look at things like CTR, and we look at conversion rates, and we look at maybe dwell time, and some of these other kind of cute metrics when it comes to creative. But we don't make sure that we're controlling who is seeing what creative. So let's imagine in a typical campaign, I've got these 3 creative designs here. What I might do is I might serve out these 3 designs, and I will look at the CTR at the end of the campaign. Whichever has the highest CTR, I will assume was the best. But did I check whether each user saw the same creative or saw all creatives? And often what happens is we will show all of these creatives to the same user. A user might click on all of them, which means it's completely uncontrolled in the way that we measure the effectiveness. And so what we do when we run campaigns for our clients is we run them in a controlled way. So let's imagine that I get this ad here, the first time I come across. for every subsequent exposure, I'll get the same ad. I will never see these other two ads, which means if I choose to engage on this creative, then we know that we can trust the results that you weren't contaminated by seeing one of the other designs. Okay? And this is very similar to randomized control trial methodology that perhaps some of you are familiar with. Okay, so what we do here for people-based incrementality measurement, as we call it, is understand what the user is, put them into one of these groups. So here we can have a control group and a couple of treatment groups here. And then for Uber in particular, we're tracking some sort of event afterwards. Now that event could be a conversion event if you've got an app download, or it could be a brand lift if you're a CPG or something and you want to measure brand recall. And then what we do is we deduct, if you like, each of these from the control group to see what the lift was. Nod if that kind of makes sense so far. Okay, a few nods, that's enough. Okay, so there's two ways you can do it. You can do either event-based methodology, so this is where you will track the conversions. Okay, so we've got our target audience here, we have our baseline creative, if you like, we're putting people into different groups here, and we're just monitoring the number of conversions from each group, and then we're going to subtract one from the other and understand what is the true lift, what is the true causal effect of that creative, if I deduct what would have happened anyway. And then the second one we do is survey-based studies. So perhaps you're a brand that doesn't have a hard event. It's not possible to track the sale of my product or service because maybe I make shampoo and I just can't track in the shop if people are buying shampoo. Then typically, for a CPG here, you can do some sort of brand survey. And you'll notice a few different product themes here. So we do ice cream surveys, and we do mayonnaise surveys, and we do hairspray surveys. And you can see we can design these surveys to feel themed. So whatever the theme of your product or your brand is, we can make the survey feel like that. And why that's important is we get much higher response rates. And higher response rates are important because then we don't have to waste as much media trying to get those surveys in front of people. So with these surveys, we get about 4% response rate versus maybe 0.4% that you might see with some other tools. Okay, so that's about the methodology. Now we can start to have a look at some examples here. And I've got 3 examples to show you today. I think I've got, if I remember right, I've got Uber examples, I've got some Facebook examples, and we've got some Unilever examples. So we'll have a look through those. Okay, so the first one I want to talk to you about is the work that we do with Facebook as an advertiser. So this is Facebook when they're advertising, trying to drive new users to their app. We do creative experimentation with them. And so this is one that we ran in July, actually. And I'll sort of set the context of the campaign, and we'll have a look at some of the results. So what we did here is we had a campaign that wanted to re-engage users. So we wanted to re-engage those users that had lapsed. So they hadn't signed into Facebook in the last 30 days. And we ran this campaign in Australia and New Zealand. And so Facebook had been using this typical creative that they had, and I'll show you on the next slide, or second to next slide, what that looks like. And they wanted to come up with some new designs. So their in-house creative team came up with these designs based on our kind of advice and recommendation. And then they use our software to build these ads. So you'll notice in each one, we've got catch up with family and friends. Okay, so this is the overriding theme of the creative. You haven't been using Facebook for a while. It's a great platform for catching up with people. And so what we did is we designed these 4 different designs here. And you'll notice that they kind of ascend in how much of the Facebook experience we're actually showing in the ad. So over here, we don't show any of the Facebook experience. It's just the feeling, the emotion of catching up with friends and family. And then at some point down here, these people then end up in the Facebook ad, or app rather. So that's kind of it. And what I'll do is I'll show you a video now of how these actually look. So we don't just do static ads, we try and bring them to life a bit. So do you see a bit of parallaxing here, just subtle animation, the people in the background are moving. So we want to bring these creatives to life a bit to create a bit of ambient emotion about the ad that you're seeing here. So I'll let these finish. That's the 4th one. So first round of experimentation, we want to test out these 4 designs, and we want to see which is most effective at driving people to re-engage with the Facebook app. What we then do is we always try and draw on a hypothesis. And you guys are probably looking here, so have a think and think which creative you think is going to have the best performance when it drives people to re-engage, okay, from one of those top 4. Now we and Facebook together, we thought this one would be really good, so I guess that's the 3rd one. And then we thought the original one here would be really good. And so what we did is we prepared round 2 of the experiment. We prepared them ahead of time so that very quickly we could just launch them. Don't ask me what's going on here. I'm not a designer. I didn't do these. It looks crazy to me. Okay, but the point is we kind of have everything ready to go. But of course, you run the campaign, and things turn out quite differently to the hypothesis. And this always happens. We always end up getting different results to what we thought. So actually, what you can see here is this one was 10% worse than the one that they were running anyway. And this is in a controlled methodology. So if someone saw this ad, they never saw one of these ads. And if someone into the control group, they only ever saw that ad. So here, what we got to with this one over here, the lifestyle, we actually got to 95% statistical significance with these results. So you can be almost certain that in 95 cases out of 100, this ad is going to be more effective than these ones. And in fact, it's going to be 17% more effective. Now, let's imagine that you're spending $10 million on this campaign. This creative here has driven you $1.7 million of just additional value that you wouldn't have got. In fact, versus this one, it's driven you even more of that. You can almost double it. And I think it's just fascinating to see these when you run them, and you just learn how much value creative can actually drive. There was no media optimization done here at all. We ran blanket media, just testing the creative. Okay, let's go on to Uber. So Uber we've been working with for a little bit longer. We worked with them for the last couple of years. So we've got a bit more of an extensive library of projects that we've done together. So I'm going to take you through some of those today. Now, I don't claim to be a creative expert. I do work at a creative company, but as you can tell from the way I dress, I'm not a super trendy hipster creative director or anything like that. But what I found fascinating about this, and credit to our studio team and the Uber studio team, on how they think about creative architecture, how they think about putting the creative together. So some of the things they started with when they'd done experiments in the past, and obviously I'm kind of just cutting out some of the content here, but one of the experiments they did way in the early days, so probably a year ago, was thinking about what kind of narrative gets people to engage with Uber ads. And all of these ads, the objective of them was to download the Uber app. So here we looked at 4 different ones: generic, interactive, motion, graphic, and video. Because again, most people just simply don't know what to build. What creative should I design? And often we have someone that just kind of guesses what they think's nice, and then we run them out, and we only optimize the media after we launch. We never really optimize the creative. So these are the 4 that we kind of looked at there. The next thing they looked onto ad subject. So they looked at what does it mean to put in the ad? So do we do lifestyle style ads? Do we do utility style ads? Or do we do brand specific ads here? Then they start to look at things like ad layout and design. So, are the people kind of separated here? So it's a kind of very generic ad. We're probably used to seeing these kind of ads. And what's interesting about this is you have almost 0 brand equity with this kind of ad. You imagine I swap that Uber logo for a Lyft logo, and you've got a Lyft ad straight away. Completely the same. So there's almost no brand equity, and for Uber that was really important. They wanted to be able to create digital ads at scale that allowed them to at least somehow reflect the brand, so that if you put a Lyft logo on this, it still feels a bit more like Uber. There's something not quite right about it if I put a pink Lyft logo on here, for example. So you can kind of look here, and you see we're kind of a bit more dramatic in with the people here. So these are kind of things you can test out. Yeah, there we go. So a bit more expressive here, kind of getting up in them. Next one we've got is actually my favorite one. So this is when we look at creative message alignment. So how aligned is the picture you're using with the copy that you're using with then the order of the objects in the ad? And we're only talking about 320 by 50s here, 300 by 250s rather, kind of trivial examples, but there's a lot you can do with that canvas. So, for example, over here, there is no alignment between the message and the people in the car. Ready when you are. That's got nothing to do with the people in the back of a car smiling. In fact, this is just a stock photo we probably bought from Shutterstock or something. But then now we start to align things. So you see you're partially aligned. You can sense she's in a nightclub or something, she's dancing, and now we've got you dance. And then finally you can kind of fully align them. So now we've got the blue, which is kind of sharing some ambience with the colors in the background to kind of, and you can just test these out each time to see which is most effective, and then just keep iterating on them. So that's with the one. The next one I'm talking about is then Unilever, because CPG, rather different. They don't have a hard event to track to. So with those, as we sort of said in the past, we always do brand lift surveys. So here I've got a few more videos, because one of the things that Uber loves to do, and everyone wants to do at the moment, is dynamic creative. And this is obviously a hot topic right now. So how do I make that message relevant for the person, kind of, whether I know something about them or I don't know something about them? So for us, there's kind of 2 parts to the dynamic creative. You can do audience-based dynamic creative, so that's I know something about you as a user. I might know your gender or your preferences or your interests. But then there's also context-based dynamic relevancy. So maybe I know nothing about the person intrinsically about them, but I know something about the context of which the ad is going to be served. So I know if it's going to be raining, or I know if it's going to be sunny, or if it's in the morning, because I can predefine those rules ahead of time. And so what you typically do when you come in, of course, is you set up your decision tree, if you like, your classic decision tree here. And so what we're doing here is we're just organizing the creative structure. So what are we going to serve and when to who? So we're going to have which tactic. So we've got some audience randomization here where we partition users into either weather creative or time creative. And this one is actually for Klondike. So does everyone know Klondike here? It's the ice cream, they do like the ice cream sandwiches. So this is for Klondike here. And Klondike wanted to know, should I tailor my messaging based on the weather, or should I tailor my messaging based on time of day? What is more effective at getting people to eat Klondike ice creams? So here we had two. We've got weather and time. Then we've got this kind of like, can we detect the condition? Because of course, in some cases, you just can't detect the condition. For whatever reason, we need to make sure that those people aren't included in the study. So we have to exclude those people by making sure they just see a generic creative and we ignore them. And then if we can detect it, then you've got the two dynamic variants. So we're going to try the sunshine creative, we're trying a rainy creative, and then we've got afternoon and evening here. And so here you can kind of see what it kind of looks like. So if it's sunny, you've got kind of beautiful day. I thought this was very clever, I thought. So if it's cloudy outside, less melting. And then, of course, you can see kind of time-based ones here. So you could have a point in the day. It could be 4 o'clock in the afternoon, where you could serve this one because it's cloudy and it's raining, but actually they wanted to test if time-based messaging is more effective than weather-based messaging. And, oh, I actually have the results of this one. I just don't have it on a slide. Believe it or not, the weather-based messaging was far more effective at doing it. I don't have the specific answers. I just remember seeing that the weather-based creative was more effective than time-based creative on those ones. I see some people taking pictures, so I'll wait for a minute. Kind of nice ads, though, as well. And so what we did with all of these is we measured them back to a brand survey. So if you remember, we had the ice cream-themed brand surveys at the start. So what happens is when people see these, the next time they come in, they get the brand survey creative, and we ask them questions, and then we measure those results back. So cloudy creative apparently is better than time-based creative. Oh, I've got another one in here. I've got Lululemon. OK, does everyone know Lululemon? They're the yoga pant company. OK. Canadian, if anyone didn't know that. I didn't know that, but they're based in Canada. OK, so we start working with them because they wanted to bring all of their creative retargeting in-house. So they've been working with companies like Criteo and AdRoll, and they were ready to bring that in-house now. They had the creative team in-house, they'd brought a DSP on in-house, and they wanted to be able to do that creative decisioning logic. But they wanted to be able to do creative experimentation within that. So sure, there's some things I can't test. I can't test if remarketing creative is better to new users than non-users. Of course not, that's already decided. But what I can do is then within these, I can start to test out different messages. So of course, has a user visited the website is the first question. That decides if you're a remarketing person or not. And then when you get into the acquisition side, we can look at different things. So should we do trending products, products on sale, generic one? Like, again, what kind of messaging works? And what we want to do is not just look at total sales. We want to look at incremental sales. That incremental return on ad spend is the most important thing. And so here you can see the logic for it. So we've got, this is the trending products, products on scale, et cetera. And then one of the experiments they did was on the product name. So how do we look at the product name? Should we include a shortened product name, so spring break, away shorts, or should we do the full product name? Like, do people have time to read this stuff? Does it matter? I mean, you can run experiments like this and find out that neither has any impact, or the impact is negligible. But the beauty of this is you can just test out lots of things very quickly all the time. You can keep testing and keep finding out what works. I'm afraid I don't have the results for this one, though, but I wanted to show it. So that's kind of the examples we have. Anyone a little clearer on what we do at Seltra? If not, I'll kind of talk you through it. So we call ourselves a creative management platform. And the idea is it helps you, as a brand, take all of those digital assets that you've got and turn them quickly into ads that you can use across different channels. So whether you want to run Facebook ads or Snapchat ads, or you want to do Condé Nast ads or programmatic ads, you just need a tool to be able to do that and test those out. So I have 3 slides on what we do, because I don't want to talk too long on that, and they're all videos, so I promise I won't put any heavy slides up. So this is how you put it into practice. So you come into the tool, you say, right, I want to do some mass personalization. This is my creative strategy. And now you build out your first tactic. So you say, OK, I want to target these audiences with my creative, or I want to have creative that's specific to these audiences. So that's tactic number 1. The next tactic you might say, I want to do sequential messaging. So I want the first time they see an ad to be this message, and the second time this message, and the third time this message. And then finally, I want to do a creative study. So within those retargeting or second exposures, if you like, I want to test out different designs. And now you can see your kind of decision tree, if you like. So you've got the audience, you've got first exposure, follow-up exposure, and then you've got kind of variant A, variant B, and baseline. So this is an experiment within the first exposure to the fashionista audience. This is how you kind of set up your creative strategy here. So once that's done, it's now time to start building your ads. So we give you this fantastic environment here to come and build these great ads. So think of it like Photoshop, but for digital ads. So you get a canvas, you can bring in your assets here, you can start to bring an ad to life, you can animate these, you've got timeline sequences, you can design these gorgeous ad experiences. But they're all designed within the framework of that tree that you saw on the previous slide. So this is how you're deciding what's going out. Probably not too many designers in the room, so I won't dwell on this one for too long. And then the final part is how do I approve and check those? So somebody at a brand somewhere is going to want to see, you're going to want to see all of those different design variants. So now you can come and preview them, you can turn them on, you can see what they look like, and you can kind of approve and check them before they go live. And at any time when your campaign's running, you can also see quickly, I just want to see all the ads alive. Which ones am I running right now? Which designs? And then we give you scorecards to understand which one is working as well. So I probably don't need to say any more on that stuff, but that is Seltra. That's what we do. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Harry.
And then we have a couple of
That
minutes
is what
for
I call
questions,
control.
but
This is very, very relevant for this room.
Oh, good.
Any questions?
Yeah, if anyone wants to know anything on the examples that we had or any questions that wasn't clear on the methodology or anything, that'd be great. If not, then you can find me afterwards. Yes?
What is the perception between like the creative
Any microphones?
agencies or the creative guys? How they feel about this? Like how are they adopting this, and how do you see that trend moving?
Yeah, I would love to say that agencies love it and they all find it online and they get in touch and say they want to do this. But of course, it's a lot of, I guess for an agency, it's more work for them in the initial start, right? Because you've got to create all those variants, right? So actually what we want to do with Seltra is we want to take the platform to the point where the platform can build you those designs. So can we get to the point where the machine, if you like, I say machine in this bubble context, can it start to make ads for you? Now, I don't think machines will ever be able to make Super Bowl ads, okay? Super Bowl ads are like, these are the best kind of creatives that we have. This is where like the human genius can come up with this amazing idea that builds emotion like we've never had before. But we don't need Super Bowl ads for every campaign, right? For the other 80% of creatives, maybe a machine can generate those. So for example, those Uber ads, we can get to a point now where we can make those Uber ads by just pressing a button. You upload your logo, you upload your brand theme, you upload your brand guidelines. So you make sure, I don't want my logo to be more than 30 pixels from the edge. I never want people's faces to be more than 6 pixels from anything else. So you can set all those and just hit generate, and the system will generate, say, 30 variants and then start to test them out. So we think the realm of the creative agency is to come up with the concept and the grand plan. It's not to make banners. Like, we think that's a waste of people's valuable time. Like, if you're a creative agency, you don't want to make 320 by 50s. Like, that's not what you signed up for. So let's see if the machine can do a lot of that, like, production legwork, and then you guys can focus on the strategy. So, but I think it's also just fascinating. The last point is people just simply don't know what to design. That's the hardest thing. When we start a campaign, what ads should we do? You just need a framework to be able to measure and find out. And then it doesn't matter if you get it wrong on the first one. You don't have to spend too long thinking about the first variant. Just send it out, see how it does, and iterate from there. Thanks.
Excellent. Any more questions? Brilliant. Thank you very much, Harry. Love the solution.